himself as a karate stylist. Oh, look at that front leg hook kick. Where do you see that? Very rare. And that's one of the things.
Conor McGregor doesn't just knock opponents out. He convinces them the opening is real, then punishes the step they were always going to take. And here's the pattern. Watch for it. For 2 rounds, that left hand arrives like a correction. After that, the fight stops belonging to him. Against Max Holloway, the question is not whether the shot lands, it is whether it lands in time. That question is the entire fight, and today it gets answered in full, before UFC 329 arrives. 2 eras, 1 unpaid debt from 2013, and a rematch built on a single collision. The most dangerous first 10 minutes in the sport, against the man who gets stronger every minute after them. Drop a like, hit subscribe, and leave a 4-word comment down below. Now, let's begin. No wasted time, straight to the heart of it. The first battlefield is the striking, and Conor's 2 biggest weapons have never changed. Raw power and the timing of that straight left hand.
It's over. Wow.
On the feet, Conor operates as a counter-striker with a karate flavor baked in. He fights out of a wide, bladed stance, drops levels to bait reactions, and then explodes with short, sudden combinations. His strengths are obvious the moment you watch him. The counters land with surgical accuracy, especially that left hand. He punishes opponents the instant they step in the wrong direction. And through the first 2 rounds, his hand speed remains genuinely dangerous. But Conor is far from a finished puzzle. The cardio question has followed him his entire career.
A lot of time in Iceland training with Gunnar Nelson, and he has a very similar style.
He also breaks down when his back touches the fence. Take away his left side, force him onto his heels, and his defense turns basic in a hurry. He eats shots he never should. And then there is the biggest unknown of all, how he moves after the leg break. His old game was built on ankle mobility and explosive footwork. After a fracture that severe, even a 5% limitation could drain his speed and his balance. Max Holloway sits on the opposite end of the spectrum. He might be the highest volume striker the UFC has ever produced. His entire system runs on relentless pace, long layered combinations to the head and the body.
To see how Holloway responds to the pressure fighter, and it's McGregor landing early.
And constant repositioning after every exchange. And here is the frightening part. His pressure compounds. The deeper the fight goes, the heavier it gets. When Max settles into his rhythm, he starts to look unstoppable. He is also one of the best in the sport at reading his opponent's condition. He senses fatigue, he senses damage, and he chooses the exact moment to press the accelerator.
Max Holloway growing up in a small town in Oahu, Hawaii, certainly.
His timing is elite too, and the footage proves it over and over. But Max carries his own cracks. Because he leans so heavily on speed and volume, his defense gets loose. His head sits still in exchanges, and hard counters find it. And the chin may not be what it once was. After the wars with Volkanovski, with Giga, with Poirier, and after getting flattened by Topuria, we know now that even Holloway is human. There is also the power gap. One Max punch does not carry what one Conor punch carries. Max builds his damage brick by brick. And right now, Conor genuinely looks like a natural welterweight, while Max spent almost his whole life at 145 and 155. His game is built on speed and output. Extra muscle could tax both. So, here is the shape of the fight. Conor is faster and far more dangerous through the first half. If he turns this into a counter-striking chess match, the way he dismantled Alvarez, and denies Max's rhythm, an early finish is very much on the table. But if Holloway weathers that opening storm, he may simply drown a fading Conor in volume and take it on the cards. Now, let's talk about the wrestling and the grappling. This chapter of their story opened in their first meeting back in 2013. That night, a 25-year-old McGregor tore his ACL in the second round and was forced to wrestle on one working leg. He still scored multiple takedowns, controlled a 21-year-old Holloway on the mat, and cruised to a unanimous decision. Both men have grown enormously since. But let's be honest, Conor never had any interest in building his identity around wrestling. He sharpened his takedown defense for the Mendes fight. He showed flashes of real defensive competence against Khabib. But by the final Poirier fight, the priority had clearly shifted back to boxing and kicks, and the wrestling defense had quietly eroded. At welterweight, Conor should still carry real physical strength. His takedown reactions have always been serviceable, but his gas tank remains the ceiling. The long layoff and the rebuilt leg could also compromise his clinch work, and there may be a mental layer underneath all of it. So what about Max? He has never pretended to be a grappler, but his takedown defense has historically been excellent. The Oliveira fight damaged those numbers, sure, but that was an outlier. Oliveira is one of the greatest grapplers this sport has ever seen. The bottom line? Max has always had just enough defense to keep the fight where he wants it, so I do not expect grappling to decide this one. Neither man builds a blueprint around takedowns, but if Conor wants to dust off the trick from 13 years ago,
Taking on that man.
Time in Iceland training with Gunnar Nelson and
slow the pace, park Max on the fence, steal around, he might reach for it. The risk is that today's Holloway is a different animal, and Conor could burn precious fuel for nothing. The smart play for both men is to keep this thing standing. Now, I want to talk about motivation. In August 2013, this was two hungry prospects. McGregor was already the loudest voice in the room, but he was nowhere near the top 10. Max was a 21-year-old Hawaiian kid staring across the cage at a world-class southpaw for the very first time. That fight left both men with a debt unpaid. Conor won it on one good leg. Max got stuck in the grappling and never found the exit. For Conor, this may be the final opportunity to prove he is still a fighter, not just a famous name attached to a promotional poster. After the Poirier losses and the years away, the hunger should be enormous. Beating a legend like Holloway at a brand new weight would silence an army of critics and breathe real life back into his legacy. Losing could close the book on his serious ambitions for good. For Max, this runs deeper than avenging an old defeat. It is the chance to spoil McGregor's grand return in front of the entire world. Holloway should also be starving after the Oliveira loss. He needs to prove the summit is still reachable, and let's not pretend otherwise. A McGregor fight is a life-changing payday, so the motivation cuts both ways. Conor fights for pride and legacy. Max fights for revenge, for history, and for money. Conor may need this win more, but Max holds one enormous edge. He kept training and kept fighting while McGregor was healing, filming, and living a completely different life.
McGregor uses that lead hand too to sort of paw and control his opponent.
top by Max. Max needs to get Conor's respect.
Now, let's talk about the bodies these two men are bringing into the cage. Conor is returning from a catastrophic leg break, a metal rod, and one of the longest recoveries of his career. The question is not whether the bone healed. Modern medicine handles that. The question is how stable that ankle and shin are under real movement, real pivots, the kind that let him slide away from danger. And then there is the mind. Nobody on earth knows how Conor responds the first time 2 or 3 hard low kicks thud into that leg. Fear of re-injury changes a fighter at the core. If he starts fighting to protect the leg instead of fighting to win, the entire blueprint collapses. There is also a quieter question about the left hand itself. So much of that power is generated through the left leg, through its drive and its stability at the moment of impact. Even a flicker of hesitation could bleed force out of his best weapon. After 5 years, Conor may have recovered most of the movement, but some of the old speed is likely gone forever. He may also arrive with an adjusted stance that unloads the back leg. That would help against low kicks and cost him mobility at the same time.
Good footwork as well, sliding to the side after that's it. Here, he caught that kick.
For Max, the challenge is the climb to welterweight. He spent nearly his entire career at featherweight and only recently settled into lightweight. Walking around at 175 means bolting real mass onto a naturally lean frame. That frame may simply not be built to carry it. It could dull his footwork, and footwork is the engine of everything he does. It could stress his joints and drain his tank faster. More muscle demands more oxygen. And since Max wins fights with pace, that is not a small concern. But there is one genuine bright spot. With no brutal weight cut, Holloway may arrive fresher and absorb punishment better than ever. So a strange balance emerges. Welterweight is home turf for McGregor. For Holloway, it is a step into an entirely new physical world. Now for my personal prediction. On style, on weight, and on their shared history, I lean Conor McGregor as the favourite. Not because the old Notorious still exists, but because the conditions of this specific fight feed his early power. Welterweight suits his body and he should own the reach. If Conor manages his fuel through the first 2 rounds, he can land the one shot Max does not get up from.
But Conor McGregor getting off early and often here as we pass the midpoint of round one.
That just should.
Max is granite tough, but after the Topuria knockout and with new weight on the frame, that chin carries a question mark. However, if this fight crosses the midpoint of round 3, the whole equation flips. Conor's cardio remains his oldest enemy. From that point forward, Holloway's experience, pace and pure activity start to take everything over. So, my advice to the Notorious is simple. Start fast, but spend wisely. Hurt Max early before Holloway drags you into his kind of war. So, what do you think? Who takes this fight, and how? Drop your pick in the comments.
Do not forget to subscribe so you never miss a new breakdown. And of course, leave that 4-word comment if you enjoyed this episode. See you soon.